Okay, welcome. My name's Gareth Snook, Head of Product for Fraud Solutions at SAS. Been at SAS for over 4 years now, leading our fraud solutions portfolio after working for 18 years at a global leading bank, looking after that bank's investment in fraud solutions, including widespread use of SAS software. For this session, I'm going to be talking about our move into using the power of AI and generative AI to amplify the productivity across enterprise fraud management. Okay, quick agenda for the session. I'm going to provide some background on SAS Fraud Solutions that went at the session yesterday, just to give some context. I'm going to talk about maximizing outcomes with valuable use of AI and demonstrate how coding rules is about to take a fundamental shift. So, as I say, for those that couldn't join me yesterday, and just to set the stage for the on-demand viewers as well, just let me start with a bit of context on SAS Fraud Solutions and the scale of transformation we've delivered over the past few years. For more than 15 years, SAS Fraud Management on SAS 9 has been and continues to be a true market leader. It powers some of the world's largest financial institutions with high-performance, real-time risk fraud engine, capable of scoring thousands of transactions per second. The enterprise solution enables banks to deploy advanced analytical models alongside highly sophisticated business rules, and that's the topic of today. Make sub-second decisions responding in real time to threats. Orchestrate complex data environments, enriching transactions with third-party intelligence to improve accuracy and outcomes. But the world has moved on. So banks today operate with orders of magnitude more data, far more payment channels and fraud patterns that simply didn't exist a decade ago. Legacy approaches are no longer enough, and that's why we've taken the next major leap forward with SAS fraud decisioning, and that's where we're focusing our investment today. So built to be cloud native, built to be AI driven, and fully harnessing the power of SAS Viya, fraud decisioning introduces automation, AI driven decisioning, and intelligent workflows. The result is not just better fraud detection, but dramatically higher productivity, faster innovation, and the ability to adapt in real time as risk evolves. So in short, SAS fraud decisioning isn't just an upgrade over SAS fraud management. Think about it as a completely new product. It's a fundamental shift in how banks are going to fight fraud in the modern era and to amplify outcomes. So banks today are operating in a fundamentally different risk environment. Fraudsters are using AI to scale attacks faster than ever, while financial institutions are under growing pressure to protect customers, preserve trust, and run more efficiently. And that's the context for our SAS Fraud Solutions product strategy, which is anchored on 3 priorities: productivity, performance, and trust. First, we focused on enterprise decisioning, giving banks integrated, highly performant, scalable capabilities to make the right decision in the moments that matter most, across every interaction, every channel. And you've heard us talk about Framel multiple times this last couple of days, bringing together fraud and AML compliance solutions in a coherent and valuable way. And that is now possible with SAS Viya instead of having our 2 siloed solutions. Second, we fight AI-driven fraud with trusted AI capabilities from SAS. We're combining machine learning, generative AI, and agentic AI, governed, transparent, and explainable, so institutions can move fast without sacrificing control or regulatory compliance. Third, we continue to innovate with deep financial crime fighting solution capabilities, embedding our decades of SAS expertise directly into the solution with content that's valuable for organizations. And we want to help our customers help their customers, as was said on main stage yesterday. So we want to accelerate the time to value, enable fraud and financial crime prevention at scale, and whether that's deployed on-prem or delivered as a service. So in short, our strategy ensures customers can outpace fraud, scale decisions, and protect trust today and into the future. So changing gears from the strategy to what we are delivering. And today we're focusing on being AI driven. So reiterating the message from yesterday, as it's important for the demo today as we focus on another one of these pillars. So at SAS, we see AI as a journey, from prediction to generation to action. So we start with predictive AI, using trusted data and proven analytics to forecast outcomes and drive better decisions. And this is the foundation SAS has led in for decades. We then extend that foundation with generative AI, enabling organizations to create content, insights, and explanations while keeping governance, transparency, and control firmly in place. And then we're moving into agentic AI, where intelligence doesn't just inform decisions, it acts. These agents pursue goals, execute tasks, and dynamically within enterprise guardrails. So together, SAS brings these three forms of AI together in a protected, trusted way. So in fraud specifically, we apply the AI journey in a very practical, high-impact way. We start with predictive AI using real-time fraud models, as I showed in the session yesterday, to forecast fraud risk and identify threats before losses occur, working alongside those business rules. We're then layering in generative AI to amplify productivity with valuable content, helping teams rapidly create rules, decision logic, and insights, dramatically reducing the time to value, and this is where we're demoing and talking about today. And then we're adding agentic AI, where systems orchestrate data, provide recommendations, and advise next best actions. And they will also triage alerts dynamically across all the channels. The result is fraud prevention that doesn't just detect risk, but predicts it, helps explain it, and acts on it at scale through SAS fraud decisioning. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the deep dive for this session. So we're using that layer of generative AI to fundamentally change the rule authoring experience. Traditionally, writing rules has required deep technical skills and significant manual expertise from scarce experts. Code is written in SAS data step, DS1, now DS2. With SAS CoPilot rule authoring, we use generative AI to convert business-friendly prompts directly into machine-readable, production-ready SAS rule code. So the agent has secure access to the full message variables, has access to macros, the SAS rule logic, and it's all running within a trusted private SAS environment. So the output is very importantly explainable, auditable, and compliant. The result will be dramatic increase in productivity, faster rule generation, greater consistency, and much quicker response to emerging fraud threats. So let's dig in a little. So currently, coded rules are written entirely by hand. I don't know about your organization's rule writers, but coding 1,000 lines, if not more, of code takes a long time, and it does lead to errors. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. As you can see in the screenshot, SAS fraud decisioning has a very powerful and fantastic rule authoring interface. We're not moving away from this capability for the experts you have. It's a real jump forward from SAS fraud management with great type ahead for variables, functions, and macros. Quick access, as you can see from the panels on the screen that pop out left and right, to all the variables, profiles, that cover all the variables that SAS provides out of the box with our comprehensive message schema API. But now, also access to all the variables and profiles your organization sets up. So we've now enabled a fully flexible message schema. So no more using RUAs, no more using DUAs and random string 0 byte 3 or whatever. We are now letting you create that API yourself. We'll provide you access to all the fields where you need them and when you need them. So rule authoring also has access to all the real-time lookup lists, again with type ahead, access to that full path of that list very quickly. And clear color highlighting with clear error messaging for any syntax errors, making sure the rule writers get their optimal code without obvious issues. So with the right skills, you do have the power at easy reach to create even the most complex of rules. So alternatively, for those like me who don't code, I'm not technical, the Guided Rule Assistant UI, replacing guided rules in SAS Rule Management, enables a full drag and drop authoring with zero code needed. This replaces SAS Rule Management's guided rules, but the one big thing here is we are not putting any function features into the coded rules that isn't also going to be available in the no code option. So you can do the full capability using this interface. So it has all the functions you need. It certainly has using drag and drop, and ask for the code view if you want at the top to see what code it generates. Both of these options today, either writing by hand or guided, require both pretty scarce expertise and, importantly, very detailed prior knowledge of the exact fraud threat that you're going after. The process requires fairly extensive manual testing and promotion via impact analysis and estimation processes. And the result of both of these approaches is often that it's more complex. It certainly takes time meaning responding to new fraud patterns often takes hours or days, leaving the door open for fraud loss to occur while those development cycles are underway. So, what's next and the demo today? So with our new third level approach, we are leveraging generative AI through SAS Viya CoPilot, and this process is fundamentally different. Through the CoPilot conversation, fraud experts describe their intent in plain language, and SAS Viya CoPilot generates that complex production-ready rule code in the background. It automatically applies the right variables, profiles, macros, and functions in the most optimal way. It can do this because the rule agent is trained to understand the context of enterprise fraud management. It understands deeply the context of your data, and it's trained with the mission to create highly performant code. So as well as code generation, this CoPilot is going to allow users to iterate and refine through prompts to tighten in on those threats. So thinking ahead, how about we ask the CoPilot how many alerts that this rule is going to create? It can tell you. What value threshold should I put in for this rule? And it can tell you. It understands the data behind it. It understands that we all require business rule logic to be as low friction for the customer as possible. So use CoPilot and let it guide your fraud rule analysts so rules are truly focused. So the CoPilot will also show outcomes using live visuals and KPIs during the test and doing the test and validate process right in front of the user. From within this creation process, your estimation results provided to you rather than requested. So our aim here is to cut down the time taken for rule creation and validation from days to minutes. Okay, and let's load up the demo. Okay, so we're starting here in SAS detection definition, where rules are authored and managed. I've opened up an existing rule workspace. You can see the rule name at the top. So on the left-hand side, you'll notice the message schema variables panel, access to all the fields coming in with the transaction or event. Things like the card details and decisioning indicators. Before writing any logic, we always start with the intent. What risk or behavior are we trying to detect? So instead of doing that manually, let's use CoPilot to accelerate that step. In natural language, I'm going to ask and describe the behavior I want to detect, effectively explaining the rule in the same way I'd explain it to another analyst or to the business. So in this case, I'm going to decline a credit card transaction when the fraud score is high, over 700. CoPilot takes that prompt and translates it into the rule logic, using all the available schema fields, using and understanding the context of what you're asking. So on reflection, perhaps 700 isn't high enough. So to show now how easy it is to amend that code, let's prompt the CoPilot into changing it, perhaps with a higher number, 850. It understands the context of rule score or fraud score, and will go in there and change the code. Now this is exactly the code that I want to promote and progress with. I can navigate to the CoPilot pane, click on the tick there, and move it into the pane to carry on with the next of the rule cycle process. So not a long demo, and it's just the start of the capabilities that are coming, but it's a great glimpse into what's going to be possible with CoPilot. So please come and talk to us and see us in the demo today. We have a more accurate and up-to-date live demo of this we can show you if you want to. And also, please come and sign up as we evolve this over the weeks and months, and we can keep you up to date with it. We'd love to have your input in how we can do it. And for those attending the brain date later that I set up, it's exactly where I want to spend this time. Where can AI be valuable to your organizations? So with this functionality, what is important is that it's fully transparent, human-readable logic, and that it's conversational, just like talking to a team member. It's not going to misspell variable names. It's not going to make those syntax errors. The chat there is fully audited, so a second review process knows exactly how that code was created. CoPilot helps analysts and fraud teams go from idea to production-ready rules much faster, and still while ensuring the final logic is something they understand, importantly own, and can explain. This is going to be clearly more powerful in fraud and financial crime, where detection strategies change quickly and the time to action really matters. So in summary, we described the behavior in plain language. CoPilot generates that rule logic for us using the trusted schema fields, and we retain full visibility and control before activating that rule. Think of this in a training scenario as well. If you're trying to teach staff how to actually code and understand the code, converse with that CoPilot and ask it to explain what it all means. So that's how CoPilot's going to accelerate this rule authoring experience inside SAS fraud decisioning. So just as we had a bit more time today, I just wanted to show another superb case of using the generative AI within the fraud side, and specifically with the investigation side in mind. Saw a demo yesterday around using SAS VI if you went to it, and Alison did. This is something else available in our investigations process to amplify the productivity of analysts. So once a rule is written, once an alert is generated, and I said before that the AI agents understand that context of fraud, they understand the context of data, so let's use all that. Let's show it on screen. So let's have the agent go through and generate all of this alert summarization for the analyst to have a look at straight away. So instead of just reading through screens and screens of transactions and manual work, let's give them a head start, let's amplify what they're doing and provide this on screen for them. It's calling out patterns in the transactions, it's calling out behaviorist summaries, it's calling out possible risk typologies. And as I say, this is presented with all the raw alert data and transaction data as well, but let's give them a head start. So customers do need to know that the workflow and content is aware of the context of a specific alert or case. This is not just the same process for every single alert, it is exactly for that risk. So on the next term, we can take it one step further. Let's have an agent provide a tailored call script for just this case, for just this set of patterns, for just this particular customer. Let's move away from generic call scripts. Let's use the analyst using the agent to speak to a customer with exactly the right script to uncover the truth. Let's get the intelligent, critical questions in front of those analysts so they can ask the customer to get to the truth. So hopefully you can see the power of AI here in making valuable contributions to this workflow to amplify human productivity. All of this is going to be GA in SAS fraud decisioning, starting from very soon with the first release of that rule CoPilot. And as I say, we'd love to get your feedback and help make it even better. So as we close, I just want to leave this slide as I did yesterday to really answer the question of why SAS and what questions you should consider moving forward. SAS isn't just about speed or cost here when we're talking about 86% lower cloud operating costs and 30 times performance. It's about using trusted AI at scale where it's valuable to you and ensuring we don't compromise governance, transparency, or data privacy. While others optimize for experimentation, SAS is optimized for production-grade analytics, where models, rules, and decisions operate reliably and under regulatory scrutiny. So the call to action here is it's a really great report. If you haven't read the Future report, try and download it. I'll leave this on screen for a moment. It really does talk about how SAS Viya and SAS fraud solutions are accelerating time to value. Okay, well, thank you very much for all your time today. Really appreciate coming on this morning. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Please find me and the rest of the team at the Financial Services booth or straight after here if you have any questions. I'll be happy to help. Thank you very much.